It's been a wild 24 hours in the world of Dub Nation, and if you've been paying attention, you know exactly why. Between the Clippers scandal exploding into full view and some serious shakeups potentially coming to the league's cap rules, Warriors fans have plenty to be watching right now. Not just on the court, but off it as well. And while the headlines might be about Los Angeles and their issues, don't get it twisted. This could absolutely have long-term consequences for Golden State. And I'm not just talking about what happens this season. I mean how this might affect the way the Warriors build for the future, especially after 2027, when their books open up again. Let's start with the Clippers. By now, you've heard the basics. Accusations that they were using a shadow company, named Aspiration, to funnel extra money to Kawhi Leonard, effectively circumventing the salary cap and violating tax regulations. We're talking about an extra $28 million in hidden payments. That's not a minor fine territory. That's draft picks being stripped, major penalties, maybe even long-term rule changes from the league office. The NBA has already brought in a law firm to investigate. And while it's early, the implications are massive. Kawhi looks like he's on his way out of LA, likely becoming a free agent. And of course, that opens up the conversation about where he could land next. And yes, some fans are already whispering about the Warriors. But here's the real concern. Not just whether Golden State could or should go after a free agent like Kawhi, but what this entire situation might mean for how teams operate going forward. This kind of scandal is exactly what triggers the league into closing loopholes, tightening the CBA, and trying to create what they call a more level playing field. And that's where the Warriors might feel the ripple effects most. Golden State has been one of the smartest front offices in the league when it comes to using every legal angle available to build a contender. Think back to the Kevin Durant sign-and trade that brought in D'Angelo Russell, which later turned into Andrew Wiggins and ultimately Jonathan Kuminga. That entire chain of moves was only possible because of very specific rules around sign-and trades and how teams can operate even when they're deep into the tax. If the league starts closing those doors, the Warriors may lose some of their most powerful tools for staying competitive, especially in the years after Steph Curry's prime. And that's not just speculation. We're already seeing how the new CBA's second apron rule is changing behavior around the league. Teams are spooked. Front offices are second-guessing deals, not just because of tax penalties, but because once you're over that line, your flexibility disappears. Suddenly, you can't aggregate salaries in trades. You can't use certain exceptions. You lose access to key tools. That's basically a hard cap without officially calling it one. And now, with this Clippers mess, we're probably going to see even stricter rules coming down the pipeline. There's also this lingering question about the Jerry West connection. And no, this isn't about guilt by association or dragging legends into things they shouldn't be involved in. But let's be honest, Jerry West was a crucial architect of the Warriors dynasty. He helped build this team into what it became before taking his talents to Los Angeles to work with the Clippers. If the NBA's investigators start digging deep, who knows what kind of overlap they'll find. Even if the Warriors had nothing to do with any wrongdoing, a shared executive history could raise questions or open cans of worms that no one saw coming. And that alone is enough to make any Warriors fan a little uneasy. But while all this drama unfolds off the court, there's some really interesting movement happening on the international stage too. Eurobasket has been underway, and one name in particular is jumping off the stat sheet, Nikola Vucevic. Now, he didn't exactly lead Montenegro to glory, getting knocked out in the group stage, but the man was a monster individually. We're talking over 20 points a game, more than 11 boards per night, 4+ assists, and a shooting percentage from three that was just ridiculous, over 50%. He had 4 double-doubles in the tournament and showed a level of consistency that should absolutely be turning heads. Now compare that with what he did last season for the Bulls. Solid, but not eye-popping. 18 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists per game, shooting 53% from the field and 40% from three. Still impressive, but there were doubts about whether he could maintain that level, especially given his age and defensive limitations. Well, Eurobasket proved that not only is Vucevic still capable, but he might even be underutilized. That should absolutely matter for the Warriors. Yes, they've been linked to veterans like Al Horford, and that still makes sense given his experience and ability to stretch the floor. But if you're looking at the long haul, Vucevic might be the better fit. He's on an expiring contract. He can give you real minutes. He can bang bodies down low with guys like Jokic or Gobert, and he can still hit the deep shot. Yes, he's not a defensive stopper, but that's where Draymond Green comes in. You don't need Vucevic to be your anchor. You just need him to hold his own, stay physical, and space the floor on the other end. That's doable. And speaking of bigs, there's another name floating around, Andre Drummond. Remember last season when Vucevic missed time with the Bulls? Drummond stepped in and was grabbing rebounds like a machine. I'm talking about multiple 20-rebound games, just completely owning the paint. He's not the same all-star level guy from his Detroit days, but as a rotational big who can handle 30 minutes in a pinch and dominate the glass, he's still incredibly valuable, especially for a team like the Warriors that has lacked a true physical presence in the middle for years. Even better, he's reportedly available. The Sixers want to re-sign Quentin Grimes, and that means guys like Drummond and Kelly Oubre Jr. are on the block as potential salary-clearing moves. For Golden State, that's an opportunity. Drummond could likely be had for a trade exception and a second-round pick that may never even convey. That's a steal, plain and simple. And since we're talking about Oubre, let's go there. Warriors fans remember him. That gap year, season when Klay was out and the team was stuck in limbo, Oubre was one of the few bright spots. He brought energy, defense, and a bit of chaos to a roster that desperately needed it. Since then, he's matured. He's been productive in Charlotte. He's been efficient in Philadelphia. He's averaging 15 a game and has transformed into a tough, physical wing who's willing to do the dirty work. No, he's never been an elite shooter, hovering around 33% from deep, but his defensive edge is exactly what the Warriors could use more of. And here's the kicker. The Warriors don't even have to gut their roster to make these moves. The trade exception from the Kyle Anderson deal, that's more than enough to absorb Oubre's contract. Drummond is a minimum-level guy at this point. Vucevic is the only one who might cost you a real asset, and even then, we're not talking about a king's ransom. Maybe a package centered around Jonathan Kuminga, plus a heavily protected pick. And that's a conversation the front office has to be willing to have, especially if they're getting multiple pieces back. Because here's the reality. The Warriors' bench was a liability last year. The rotation fell apart in the playoffs. And if Golden State wants to be back in the mix with Denver, with Minnesota, with Oklahoma City, with Phoenix, they can't roll out a six-man rotation and pray for a miracle. They need depth. They need muscle. They need options. And this is where things start to get really interesting for the Warriors. Because if you actually map out what's possible with the right set of trades and signings, the puzzle starts to come together. The idea isn't to go all in on just one piece. It's to stack multiple complementary moves that, together, transform the Warriors from a team barely treading water into a dangerous, deep, and playoff-ready squad. You don't fix this roster by praying for one superstar. You fix it by adding the right blend of veterans, high IQ role players, and a few guys who can bring the toughness and rebounding this team has lacked for years. So imagine this. You move Jonathan Kuminga to a team like Phoenix, a franchise that's clearly in need of youth and athleticism. And in return, you get a package that includes Royce O'Neal, Nick Richards, a couple of second-round picks, and maybe even a heavily protected first-rounder. Now, you've added a proven 3 and D-wing in O'Neal, who can slide into multiple lineups and space the floor, and a young, physical big man in Richards who gives you legit rim protection and vertical spacing on offense. That's already a net win, especially when you consider how uneven Kuminga's role has been. The talent is there, but the fit hasn't been consistent. At some point, it makes sense for both sides to move on. Now take that new front court depth and use your existing trade exceptions to grab Kelly Oubre Jr. and Andre Drummond. Again, you're not giving up major assets here. This is just smart cap maneuvering. Oubre slots into the wing rotation as your new defensive pest, and Drummond becomes your bench enforcer who can rebound like crazy and give you a totally different look than anything the Warriors currently have. You now have size, muscle, and toughness to throw at the Jokers, the Embiids, and the Sabonisses of the world. Then go out and sign someone like Seth Curry, who knows the system, can knock down shots at an elite clip, and doesn't need the ball in his hands. Pair that with a steady hand like Malcolm Brogdon, if the price is right, and suddenly your bench has actual veteran leadership and scoring punch. And don't forget, you're still planning around Al Horford and, potentially, making a real move for Nikola Vucevic. At that point, you're looking at a front-court rotation of Vucevic, Horford, Drummond, and Nick Richards. That's 4 playable bigs with completely different skill sets, spacing, physicality, experience, and youth. You can mix and match based on matchups, you can rest guys during the season, and you're no longer terrified of being undersized come playoff time. And if you do end up trading Moses, Moody, or Buddy Hield in a deal to land Vucevic, that's fine, because you're replacing the production with guys who fit better. Hield is a shooter, sure, but he's a one-dimensional piece who doesn't bring anything on the defensive end. Moody's development has stalled, and in a win-now environment, you don't have time to wait forever. Adding proven vets who've played deep into the playoffs or who bring elite role-player value makes more sense. This is how you build a contending roster without needing a blockbuster. It's about layering moves that solve real problems. Depth was the Warriors' biggest issue last year. Not just depth, but dependable depth. Too many nights, they were leaning on guys who didn't have defined roles, or who couldn't be trusted on both ends of the floor. That's what got them bounced early. That's what made Steph have to go into hero mode for 40 minutes a night just to stay competitive. These moves, on the other hand, give Steve Kerr the flexibility to mix things up. Want to play big? Throw out a lineup with Vucevic, Draymond, and Oubre. Want to go small and fast? Roll with Brogdon, Curry, and Wiggins. You want a defensive grind lineup? Run Draymond, O'Neal, and Oubre at the 3-4-5 and just wear teams down. The point is, you'd finally have options, something the Warriors haven't had in years. There's also a culture factor here. Bringing in guys like Horford, Brogdon, even Seth Curry again, means you're reinforcing that team-first mentality. Horford's been around forever and is one of the most respected vets in the league. Brogdon is low maintenance and does everything right on and off the court. Oubre's got fire, but now with maturity, he can be that emotional spark without becoming a distraction. And Drummond, for all his limitations, plays hard every single night. These are guys who know what their roles are and are okay embracing them. And let's talk quickly about the future. All of this is happening with an eye toward 2027 and beyond. That's when the Warriors finally get cap flexibility again. That's when the contracts of Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and others begin to come off the books. You're going to have a clean slate. The danger is, if the NBA reacts to this Clippers scandal by tightening the CBA even further, it could limit the Warriors' ability to make those big free agency splashes. That's why it's so critical to build up assets now. Trade exceptions, picks, flexible contracts, because that's the only way you'll be able to pivot when the rules change. We've already seen how the second apron rule scared teams into being more conservative. This offseason could be the last one where you still have enough wiggle room to make meaningful upgrades. If the league decides to close off loopholes like sign-in trades or restrict the use of exceptions further, then all of a sudden your options shrink. That's why the Warriors need to be aggressive right now. Not reckless, but proactive. Before we continue, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any exclusive Dubs updates. Let's keep going. Explosive whispers are shaking the NBA world. Gary Payton II is reportedly making a sensational return to the Golden State Warriors, and the rumor has sent shockwaves through the league. Known for his suffocating defense and relentless energy, Payton II could once again become the nightmare for opposing guards in the Western Conference. Insiders suggest that the Warriors see him as the missing piece to take their defense to an elite, almost untouchable level, reviving the fearsome reputation the team had in the defensive end just a few seasons ago. Payton's previous stint in Golden State was marked by unforgettable moments, key stops, clutch steals, and defensive hustle that electrified fans at Chase Center. Now, with whispers of his return, analysts are already speculating about the defensive havoc he could wreak alongside Draymond Green. The dynamic duo of Green and Payton II could make driving to the basket a hazardous adventure for any star player. potentially altering the landscape of the league's offensive strategies. While no official confirmation has been made, the buzz is enough to have other teams reconsidering their trade plans and rotation strategies. Sources close to the situation hint that PAYTON 2 has been in talks with the Warriors for weeks, drawn by the chance to rejoin a championship-caliber squad hungry to defend its crown. Rumors also suggest the move could be finalized in the coming days, sparking a frenzy among fans on social media. Some say this is Golden State's strategic answer to the rising threats in the West, a clear signal that they're not just aiming for another playoff run. They're sending a message. Offense may win games, but defense wins championships. Even without official confirmation, the chatter around PAYTON 2's potential return is electrifying arenas and online forums alike. If the deal goes through, the Warriors' defensive identity will shift into overdrive, giving opponents nightmares before the first tip-off. One thing is certain, the NBA might soon face a renewed defensive monster, and Gary Payton 2's comeback could be the storyline that dominates headlines all season long. Stay updated exclusively with the latest Dub Nation news. Subscribe to our channel and hit the like button to keep getting daily updates on the Warriors. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments. Your input is essential for the Dubs community. Stay tuned for the next video.